All right, so Brandon Lamoncha here with Humtown Products, and today we're at the first day of CastExpo, and I asked my friend Bryan from Amsted to sit down and kind of talk a little bit about, as being a new user of X1 3D printer, I just wanted a perspective, basically to hear, going from a tooling world where you used to use tooling and patterns and core boxes, to now being a new user of X1 3D printing technology. Just some of your thoughts, just kind of maybe start with, like the speed, where, before you would have a design, you would kick out CAD and send it to the pattern shop, now to 3D printing. What is that internally, because you have your own pattern shop? What are you seeing on the speed to market type timeline?
It's made all the difference in the world. We've been able to shorten the time from concept to going into production, maybe more than half, I would say. We can do all of our initial sampling using printed cores, and at times we decide, well, we need to go to a more conventional method. Other times we'll stay with 3D printing, but no matter what, those initial sampling phases have been shortened a lot, and it's really been an advantage to us, especially as our business is heading into new product types, and we've enjoyed having that capability available to us.
So, knowing what in the past, you would make a tool and you would make adjustments, along the way. You may, cast a part, measure it, make it. Have you guys used it for like a concurrent iteration where you would design a core and maybe make like 2 or 3 different iterations and cast them and then see which one worked?
Absolutely, we have. We've experimented with different binder levels, different additives, and different sizes, different shape configurations to see what would be best, and do that all at once instead of making iterations. And that's another thing that's added to the reduction in sampling time, experimentation time, and leading up to our production readiness.
Yeah, I think it's really underutilized. I think a lot of my clients should be coming with 2 or 3 designs, print all of them, label them, ship them, cast them, and then see which one works, because the time, like you said, if you can cut your time in half of getting a good casting to your customer by printing a couple extra cores, it just seems so logical to me. So I'm glad to hear that you guys have done that. What was the learning curve like? So I came out and guided a little bit, but you guys have really pretty much picked up the pieces with X1, and you were printing. But what would you say from the time that machine got installed to you guys felt really comfortable up and running? What would you say a learning curve would be for a new user of that technology?
I would say for a new user with some foundry experience, familiarity with core making processes as they are now is very helpful. So for me, within about 3 months, I was feeling very comfortable. Okay. There were still problems that came up, or issues, but we
still have problems that come up.
For a new user, new user, I would say it might take 2 or 3 times that amount of time for them to become comfortable, because they're really learning core making as well as learning to use the machine.
Exactly. I think you have a huge advantage when you are a core maker, or you have core making experience, as opposed to when you are just buying this as a 3D printer and saying, hey, I'm going to start making cores. So I think that perspective is really beneficial, and I think a lot of people need to know that, because it's a great machine. X1 does a great job making a machine. They bring it in, they set it up, but the process is very difficult to learn if you don't have core making experience. And I think by operating, maintaining, and running core machines day in and day out, there's a lot of transferable knowledge to running a printer.
Yes, I would agree with that.
What would you say if you had to do it all over again? Did you have any learning lessons? Like, would you have done anything differently?
I probably would have benefited from spending more time somewhere that had a machine, as Humtown does, to see some problems experienced, the little bumps in the road that are inevitably going to come, and seeing what reaction is appropriate for each one of those events. There was nothing that stopped us from producing, but it added to the stress of using the machine and, wondering whether you're really doing the right thing. So, more of that exposure ahead of time would have been very helpful for us.
No, I agree. I mean, that was my biggest benefit, spending, years at the University of Northern Iowa, watching, learning before we jumped into having a machine. So I can totally, I totally agree with that. That's a great thing, to do before you jump into buying a printer. Any other things that you have that were maybe not a surprise or that you would have done over or done differently, but any other perspectives? I've been doing this for a long time, so I kind of lose sight, as a new user, as new to having a machine on site. Maintenance, or like, what are some of the things that are still those materials, or have you had any shortages through the COVID or anything like that? Has there been any hiccups in the process that maybe a new user may find more harder to overcome than maybe someone like ourselves that have had multiple machines for a long period of time?
There have been some occasions where we have some variation in the raw materials that we're using. The sand, we use a considerable amount of black iron oxide, and I really didn't have a complete understanding of how the what's considered a normal variation in those materials, what that would do to the printing process, how it would manifest itself in core quality and printing time, printing interruptions. I wish we would have had a little more familiarity with that variation, the amount that we could expect, and its effect on the printer. We have through help from Humtown, we've learned some methods to deal with those variations and how to make adjustments that will allow us to keep going and not have to stop and do some post-processing with those materials in order to keep running.
Yeah.
And we're very, very glad to have that available to us. I know that I can call you just about any time of the day after 6 o'clock in the morning and you'll be available.
Yep.
That's been invaluable to us, and we very much appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we appreciate the relationship, and people always ask, why do you help your customers take a piece of technology, install it, and then the work goes away? I said, actually, by helping customers understand when and where to utilize it, and I think you and I have already talked, you can, once you see the benefits, you start capacitizing that machine, and then it's like, you may need another machine, but in the interim, maybe we'll help, or if your machine's down for maintenance, So we've always found that standing in the gap and building that bridge, has been great, and it was great working with you guys, on site and having you at our facility multiple times. So I think, to be honest, I think more people should, take that step, whether it's with us or another print service center or X1. They really need to spend more time up front, because an interesting point, as I said, a lot of the knowledge about running a machine is transferable. The materials and the selection of materials and the effects that they have on the printing process, it would never bother us or hurt us in our conventional plant, but on a printer, it can be a game changer. So
absolutely.
That's a really good point that I don't think a lot of people realize. They think, sand is sand, or a black iron oxide or a binder, they're not all created equal. So I think that's a really good takeaway.
I would like to be able to see us, as the 3D printing industry grows, I would like to see us be able to exert more influence on suppliers of those materials to offer us a more consistent product. I know we're quite a ways away from that now, but to exert that influence so we can improve all of our qualities through the group effort.
Well, and as we grow, I mean, this year alone we've used over 1,200 tons of sand in printing. We were spotting rail cars of sand, weekly for our consumption. So I think as we all come together and drive up that usage of sand and binder and additives, I think our voice will become louder, because right now, they're making black iron oxide or resins or sands, for the conventional side. And now, as we become more relevant and more predominant, I mean, let's face it, my company that my grandfather started in 1959, almost half of our revenue now is 3D printing.
That's amazing.
As a core manufacturer. So, as that heads in that direction, our voice is going to be heard more. And as we come together as a user and as a group in the a subset of the foundry industry, I think the suppliers will listen. So I think that's a great point. great thing about this industry is everybody shares. You know what I mean? It's a very inclusive. It's a very, we do share because we're either going to all rise or fall together at the end of the day. We're, our competition isn't right down the road or the next state over. I mean, we're competing globally. So I think it's very important, to become, resilient. And, the same reason we help our customers, integrate technology is because we're all going to be using more and more of that technology as we come along. And the faster we rise together, the further we're going to go.
And I think we can have some good influence to shape what is offered to us as well by giving feedback to the companies that make this type of equipment. When there's a lot of us, they know what everyone expects out of them. That they want improved quality, they want faster printing times, all those things. What's very important to us, hopefully that's what they'll deliver in their next iteration. So.
Exactly. No, I think it's very important. I think right now, having some type of users group or having some type of and that's what we tried starting, and I think we can even take it further with the AFS and the additive manufacturing group, division, is that we can take that to the next level, that we can bring that in as, as a more, we can boil it down to a group of just sand printing, you know what I mean? Like, we can act inside of that, we can actually have a users group where we can take and, be the feedback, be the voice to the suppliers to ensure that, we are getting the highest consistency and highest quality.
I would love to see that happen.
Well, if you don't have anything else, I really appreciate your time. Thanks for sitting down with us and talking a little bit. It's the first day of the show. We all have a lot to learn and walk around and see. So, Bryan, thanks for stopping by, and I hope you have a great rest of the CastExpo.
Well, I was glad to do it. Thank you very much.